and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking you through how I got onto my PhD program, how I physically applied for a PhD program, because I've noticed a couple of you leaving comments on my Instagram or sending me DMs asking about how you do it, how you approach it, so I'm here to answer hopefully all your questions. Let's go on with the video. What I'm basically going to do is I'm going to talk you through the process I went through to apply for my PhD, and obviously this is a very UK-centric PhD process. It's completely different in different countries. I feel like the UK, we do it slightly differently actually from everyone else. We're sort of the odd ones out. I've spoken before about the fact that I am an unfunded PhD student, but I did apply for funding, so I will also briefly mention that. Obviously can't advise that well on it because I didn't get it, but I will talk you through the process of applying, including funding. Step 1, figure out what field you're going into so that you can approach relevant supervisors. I'm hoping if you're applying for a PhD, you already know what you want to do the PhD on. You're already enthusiastic, you're already wanting to do a PhD, and hopefully you've got a rough idea of what you want your topic to be. For me, that was romance scholarship, it was queer romances, so queer theory, queer scholarship, romance scholarship, that was kind of my area. In my master's read up and I realised there really wasn't a lot of scholarship on queer romances, so that meant I had a lot of options about what I could do. So I think in my original proposal that I was sending out to prospective supervisors, I said I want to look at the history of queer romances and judge how they have developed. Something like that. It was very vague. Step 2 is how do you find these supervisors that everyone talks about? As a humanities student, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to become aware of people who are in your field who are accepting PhD students. Most academics will accept PhD students. The only reason they wouldn't is if they're going to retire soon, if they're going to go on a sabbatical, or if they've got too many already, because there is a limit to how many they can supervise. The first thing I did to find supervisors is I went through and I found a journal in my theme. So there is the Journal of Popular Romance Studies, and I basically went through that and I made a list of anybody who had ever contributed to that who said they weren't a PhD student or a doctoral student, and I put them in a list and I worked out what universities they went to. I then made a list of universities I'd be interested in, and I was looking all over the world, from Canada, Sweden, America, Australia, the UK, anywhere where they would teach in a language I understood. I was looking at those universities or those countries, and I started creating a spreadsheet basically of interesting people who I'd want to be my supervisors, the university they went to, and I just started reaching out to them. Some of them were more on the queer theorist side, some of them were more on the romance side. And about halfway through the process, I realised I wanted a romance person, because to me that was the most important part. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do it on romance, that was sort of non-negotiable, and I wanted to introduce queer theory into romance. I culled all the people who were queer theorists, I stopped approaching them, and then I started sending out emails. And often these emails, you can kind of find examples online. You want to be pretty formal, you don't want to be too long, you want to kind of say, hey, well, you don't say hey, you want to be more formal. You say, dear Dr. X, I really loved your work on this article, I found it really interesting, I think it really links into what I want to do for my PhD, and then in a short sentence explain what you want to do. So I was saying, I'm looking to do a PhD starting in September, I would like to do it on queer romance novels of the 21st century, this currently hasn't been done, I'll be looking at how they've been queered, how they've developed as a genre, something like that. I can't remember the exact words I used. And then you say, would you be willing to discuss further with me about being my supervisor? Would you be willing to have a talk to me about being my supervisor? End it with something like that and say, best wishes, thank you for your consideration, looking forward to hearing back from you. So you want to keep it quite short because they will receive a lot of emails, but you want to get your point across, you want to be polite, and you don't want to be messing them around. Don't email people if you don't already have a fairly good idea of what you want to do. Don't email them and say, I want to do a PhD in queer romances, would you be my supervisor? You need to give them more than that. You need to say, I want to do a PhD in queer romances and I'll be looking at X, Y, and Z. If that then changes, that's completely fine, but you want to email them something a bit more niche than just the general overall topic, because otherwise they probably would just dismiss you out of hand. I got some people who never replied, and that is just the truth of the matter. Some people will just not respond to you. Some people responded and said they couldn't be my supervisor and they would direct me to other people. I actually had that happen. I had this really weird experience where the list I was working down, they all know each other most of the time, especially if you're going into a small field like romance scholarship. And this was a real moment where I was like, oh my god, emails are whizzing around the world about me. Like, people in America are talking about me. That's so weird. had messaged Dr. Catherine Roach in the University of Alabama, and she very kindly was like, your PhD prospect sounds amazing, but I don't think this is the university for you. Have you spoken to X, Y, and Z? And then she actually like sent them an email for me. So she sent an email to Dr. Derek Salinger, and then he basically reached out and said, this sounds amazing, always happy to welcome new romance scholars. I think the best person she could talk to is Dr. Amy Bird and Dr. Deborah Longworth at the University of Birmingham, because they're creating a real community of romance scholarship. And I was actually already in talks with Dr. Amy about her being my supervisor, and she is now my supervisor today. But it was just really great to get that confirmation that I was looking in the right place and that I was going to the best place I could for my field. That it really gave me the confidence to feel like I was making the right choice, and that yes, Amy was the right supervisor for me, and that I was going to the best place I could. After that, I kind of stopped emailing other people, and I kind of just spoke to Amy, and we started talking a bit more seriously. We had a telephone interview first, I think, to kind of flesh out more what I wanted to do, and we did quite a lot of back and forth emails. And then I came in for a face-to-face interview, which was more formal. So the face-to-face interview, I had Dr. Amy Bird. I had another person in that interview who was from the department, so the Department of English, but they weren't my supervisor, and that was probably about a 45-minute interview. I was actually really nervous, partly because I had to get to work like 2 hours later in another county, so that was a bit stressful, but it went really well. There were some questions that were quite hard, but part of that, they're testing. They want to make sure that you've got not just the academic rigor to do a PhD, but also that you are mentally prepared for it. You know what you're getting yourself into. You know that it's not going to be like a quick, easy thing. And then actually after that, I had an informal meeting with Deborah, who became my secondary supervisor, Dr. Deborah Longworth, and we just had a little chat in a hallway, actually. It was so random because she was so busy. So we had a chat in a hallway, and talked through ideas, and she was really enthusiastic. And again, it just gave me that confidence that I was going to the right place for me, because even before I had agreed to come, they were so like happy and excited to meet me and hear about my project and found it so interesting. So that really gave me the encouragement that I was going to the right place. And I would say that if you're going to multiple interviews, because I know some people interview at multiple places, don't just go off like, oh, this supervisor is the most prestigious. Look into, do you like the feel? Do you like them as a person? Do you get a good vibe? It's a bit like if you're going for an interview for a job, part of that process is you are interviewing them and you want to find out if it's the right fit for you. So it is a two-way street. Obviously, don't go in there and be really arrogant and be like, well, why should I come to your university? But just go in there, keep an open mind, assess out the situation, and see if this is a place you can see yourself studying and learning and growing at for 3 to 4 years, because it's a long commitment and it's a financial commitment as well, especially if you're unfunded. But honestly, the best thing I can suggest is do lists. I probably had like 3 or 4 different lists. I had lists of different universities, I had lists of different academic people, name of the academic, the institution, a brief summary of what they did, had I reached out to them, yes or no. And this was probably like a 20 long list, and I just worked my way through it and it worked. But you do have to do an element of research. But again, if you're going into doing a PhD, that's probably something you're already pretty good at. That was step 2, finding the supervisor, which I think is the one most people get confused about. Once Amy had agreed to be my supervisor officially, we started working together over email to get my application in. There are kind of 2 separate steps for applying for a PhD, and most of the time your supervisor will help you a lot with this. So the official application to apply for the University of Birmingham is usually pretty simple, fairly standard. If you've applied for a master's or an undergrad, it's a pretty similar process to that in the UK. It's an online application. You have to answer certain questions saying, why do you want to do it? What are you going to be doing it on? Who's agreed to be your supervisor? What course are you applying for? And then all the basic, like, what's your passport number? What's your date of birth? Are you this? Are you that? That side of the application, I wouldn't say Amy helped me with massively, because she doesn't need to. The side of the application she helped me with is often once you've got a supervisor, then you will start working together to talk about funding and funding options available to you, because these will vary from department to department, university to university, and potentially even project to project, depending on what you want to do. So me and Amy started working together and working on my application for M4C, or the Midlands 4 City. And that process probably took about 2 months. I think I submitted it in January of 2019. I submitted it either in December or January of like 2018 or 2019. And bear in mind, I wanted to start in September 2019. So that gives you a time frame here. Like if you want to get funded especially, you need to apply far in the future. But that was kind of part of my application, because normally when you submit funding, you need to show that you are a prospective PhD student at university. So you need a certain code or number that will will get assigned to you, like your student number. So I heard back from that pretty quickly that I didn't have it. I think it took like 2 months to find out that I hadn't got the funding, and then you get put in the college funding. But that's just the same application process. At the University of Birmingham, they just forward the application you put forward for the M4C and they send it on to the college, and then the college will reach out to you, I think in about June time, to say whether you've been successful in getting any of the college scholarships. When I didn't get the M4C, Amy let me know very kindly in an email. She said, are you still interested in doing the PhD? Because some people, they wouldn't be able to do it if they didn't get funding. I was in a very fortunate position where I could continue the PhD without funding because I had part-time jobs, I had some savings, and I will be honest, I had very generous parents. So with the combination of those three, and now with the government loan, which I also have, I said yes, I would like to continue despite not getting any funding. And then that's kind of the process over. That makes it sound so simple, and I realise when you're doing it, it's so stressful and it is so time consuming, especially working on those applications. But once you've applied and you've either got funding or you haven't, I just had to send an email to Amy and say, yes, I would still like to do it. So that is how I applied for my PhD at the University of Birmingham, and I hope this helps some people. Okay, bye!